Okay, recording is in progress and we are here. Welcome, folks, to our last huddle of 2021. We sent out a note this afternoon to remind people, but also to send links that we had promised a while ago. And so if you didn't have a chance to take a look at that, you might want to, because it has links to some things we're going to show you today, and then you'll have access to them.
Oh, the what note that went out today?
Yes, it went out this afternoon.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it,
It was a last minute thought.
Yes.
And
if you'd like to go to the chat and say who you are and who you're with, feel free to do that. You don't have to, but especially if you're new, it would be great for you to just say a couple words about yourself.
And if you're part of a group, it'd be good too.
Mm-hmm.
So welcome, everybody. I just want to remind you that these huddles will start happening on an every week basis starting Wednesday, January 12th. That will be our next meeting. And Representative Lujan has just joined us.
Trey doesn't have audio yet, though.
Yeah. And so you can jot that in your calendar, Wednesday, January 12th, 6 to 7, and that'll be a recurring meeting at 6 to 7 every Wednesday throughout the session. And,
yeah, it'll become weekly at that point.
Yeah. So what we're going to do today, we laid that out in the email that we sent out earlier today, but just to kind of give you a lay of the land, we're going to talk about some of the roles and responsibilities that we would need filled. But the most important thing we're going to do is show you the bill page that we've developed on our website with the bills we're supporting right now and the bills we're opposing and links to more information on each.
And it's pretty simple at this stage of the game. There's fewer than 10 total between supporting and opposing.
But we're going to hear from someone tonight about a bill that is going to be introduced on water, and that was one of the things that was missing from our list. So we'll get to that in just a minute. But in terms of the roles that we need filled, one of the most important things we need are people who can volunteer to observe hearings. And we were going to share with you our sign-up form. We had a sign-up form from last year that asked people all kinds of information about their interests in bills and stuff like that, or the times that they're available. And Roxanne's going to talk a little bit about why we would prefer to do this strictly by times. Yeah,
so what we're asking is people who would like to follow the hearings where the bills that we're supporting or opposing are being heard and take notes. And we have a Google form to do that, to make it a little easier for you. And then we have a sign-up sheet, which we realized just this afternoon that we need to update from last year. Last year, we asked people what they were interested in, what issues, and we had some people who said, oh, I only want to follow bill, A, B, or C. Well, that's really challenging because you don't know when those bills are going to come up for a hearing, and you may not know till the night before, and you may be working the next day or have a medical appointment or something. So what works the best is to, if you would like to be a hearing observer, is to sign up for a quote unquote shift. Like I can do it on Monday mornings from 8 to 12 or Wednesday afternoons from 12 to 5 or something like that. I think it's 8 to 12:30 and then 12:30 to 5, something like that. But that way you can block that out of your schedule and you're going to be available at that time. We don't know which bills are going to be heard then, but it's just part of the whole process. So we're hoping that people will be willing to fill a slot and then just observe whatever bill happens to be coming up on that day in their time slot. And the way that it's worked in the past is we usually have at least 2 people, sometimes 3, and Paul is a backup because he likes to watch all the hearings. So if you can't
junkie,
if you can't do it, we can usually find someone else to cover for you. But we will revise that form and get that out to all of you for anyone who wants to sign up to be a hearing observer. A lot of you have done it for retake in the past, and we really appreciate that. So especially those of you who are experienced at observing and taking notes in a hearing, we hope that you will do that again this year.
The most important function there is to note opposing arguments. And the other thing we're going to have to do is change the form for where you record your messages, because what it didn't anticipate was how many times a bill would be amended.
You're
in
not
the
your
committee.
messages, your notes, right?
Yeah, for your notes. And
Okay.
we need to have check boxes for that kind of situation. But it's really important for us. For example, if you remember the SB 66 HB 147 small loan rate in House Judiciary was amended, and information on, if I hadn't seen that, I would have been relying on someone who was in the room and could take good notes on the positions people were taking in support of that amendment. In particular, there was a representative, Cadena and Lewis, who were talking about their friends or constituents who had told them that that was the only loan they could get and it saved their butts. So what we have done in the interim is work with Think New Mexico to develop research from 6 states that have implemented 36% rates caps. And they did research in those states to find out whether there had been any negative consequences for borrowers, and they found none. And in fact, they did focus groups, so you get quotes from borrowers who are explaining, it was easy to do, so I did it, but I wish I hadn't. I got sucked in and, blah, blah, blah.
Well, and I maybe you made this clear, but in case you didn't, a lot of legislators were saying, well, if we lower the interest rates from 175 to 36 or whatever, all those payday lenders are going to leave the state, and these poor people who are in crisis won't have anybody to lend them money. And that is just not true. And even the credit unions have said they would do emergency loans at that rate. And I see we've got Karen Myers from New Mexicans for Fair Lending on.
What a coincidence.
So she probably knows something about
Karen,
this.
if you want to wait, but for now, we're not really leaning on individual legislators. The effort we're going to be making is just trying to get the governor to put it on the call.
Right, because as of this point, well, she hasn't
submitted it, but she hasn't signaled she's going to do it.
She's just brought up a few things that we know she wants to put on the call, and then a couple other things that we know are going to be on there because of the advocates organizations. But at this point, we don't know whether she's going to allow that to be heard this year.
So why don't we go to the Zoom, the page.
Oh, so do we have, I was going to say, if people have a question, just go to under reactions on your bottom toolbar. If you click there, there's a, you can't raise, you can raise your hand. So if you have a question, just use the raise hand function. If you're on the phone or can't do it, then feel free to unmute or just, if you're on video, and you can wave to us, but it works better if you use the raise your hand.
Actually, they can't, because there's 3 pages of people.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So
okay.
we only see
we can't see you because we only see the first page. And by the way, I'd recommend that you use gallery view rather than speaker view on your screen, which you can get on in the top right-hand corner of the Zoom window. And you can switch to gallery view. That way you can see more people.
Okay, so we're going to go to the page where we have our bill list.
All right, we're gonna share screen with you. Oops.
Okay.
All right.
Can everybody see our 2022 New Mexico legislative session page?
Yeah, I'm sure they can.
Okay, I hope so, because we're out of trouble if you can't. And now we're going to scroll down. It's not always easy to get to the scroll bar. when you've got
Yeah,
Zoom
because we've
open.
got the Zoom chat and everything
But
piled on top of it.
Just so you see, there's the
That's
huddle
what we do.
information, but this is bills we support, oppose in 2022 is in the middle of the page now. And we're going to click on that. And it's important, no, not there
Sorry.
yet. It's important that you know that this, it says as of December 27th, we are just getting started. We've had quite a number of conversations with legislators, but and advocacy groups. But what we know so far we're going to be supporting or opposing is a little further down. But the reason we want to start sharing this with you is because it's not too late to initiate a dialogue with your legislator to educate them about bills that are coming.
So yeah, so this is under NM New Mexico legislation on the website at retakeourdemocracy.org. So you can
And
go back over it.
One of the things we want you to
later.
do right away for the public bank and small loan rate cap, and we have Karen Myers here and Angela Merkert. Merkert is here for public banking, and Karen is involved in the coalition trying to get the 36% rate. Maybe we can pass the ball over to them and they can.
Well, and also feel free, Karen, to just say no, because I know you didn't expect us to ask you to say anything about it.
But it would be good to know. I mean, our assumption is that right now it's good to be contacting the governor and saying, please put public bank and small loan rate cap on your call. You don't have to give a ton, you don't need to do a ton of research to do that. You only get a little space, but you could put in a reason or two for each and maybe do that in separate contacts or in one.
Yeah, so you
Paul,
can use,
Paul,
Yes,
Yeah.
Karen, if you want me to comment briefly.
yes.
Yeah.
My understanding is that it will not be on the call unless there is a negotiation, a path forward between the Senate and the House. That's my understanding. And given where things ended up last year, unless folks in the House and the Senate can come up with, I guess, an agreed framework, even if everything's not totally worked out, it may not be on the call.
Okay.
so do you know whether it would still help for people to contact the governor, or is that not even something they need to do?
I'm not talking on behalf of the coalition at this point. I mean, just make that clear. I think the question is, it's a 30-day session. It's going to be really tight. And I think the message is that the Senate and the House need to, with the governor's office assistance, work it out, figure out a path forward so this can get done. And if it can't, then we have more work to do in the interim.
Okay, well, maybe we can do a little more
We'll do some more reconnaissance.
and find out if it might help then for people to contact their House or Senate members and urge them to get those negotiations going so we can get this
And I
bill on the call.
had mentioned earlier that the research that I did on bills, states, 6 states where they have done the 36%. And that the reason I did that was to use to put leverage on legislators who were on the fence in the past, either who are opposed to 36% rate or who were, we were uncertain and haven't voiced support. And so that may be the strategy we kick off immediately, but
yeah,
we'll guide on that.
we'll figure this out.
The other thing, can you just show them the Retake's Guide to Writing Letters? We're not going to spend a ton of time. We're not even going to spend more than it. Just start scrolling, please.
Yeah, so this is linked right on the legislative page, tips for writing letters to the editor. So this is a good resource if you're interested in doing that. What do you want me to go to?
I want you to get to the list of the.
Media?
We give some sample
There's-
letters
yeah,
and
sample
stuff.
letters.
But here's the inventory of media outlets, and it starts with the 10 largest. But then after that, it goes into others that are of smaller but still reach populations, especially in rural New Mexico. And
Mhm.
so it also says the word limit and so forth and how to submit. And so one of the things we think we want to try and do right now is start getting people, especially you folks, who are pretty well informed on the issues, to write letters to the editor about one or more of the bills that we're supporting. And we're going to go back now to go to the bills themselves.
Okay, here we go. This is, as of basically this week, what we know about.
And Angela can chime in as to, do you have something you want to tell us in terms of where you're at in terms of trying to get on the governor's call?
I'd be glad to, Paul, and thank you for including us. Where we are now is we have had multiple requests through various allies for a meeting with the governor, because we have potential sponsors of the bill, but all are hedging a bit and saying, what's the governor's take on this? Will she put the bill on the call? And as we know, there's been a lot going on in the roundhouse with the special session, and then everything else on the appropriations. So I'm expecting to hear by the end of this week about a potential meeting with her next week. And if anything, and we have an op-ed that's tentatively scheduled for the 4th of January in 2 to 3 of the largest newspapers. So we have, we believe we're making a case for the time is now for the bank so that it'll be operational by 2023. And so that we don't go into the peaks and valleys, of funding economic development that we've been in the past. The bank would stabilize that. And especially with the timing of the Empower and Collaborate 20-year economic development plan that was issued about a month ago.
Right.
We believe the timing is right for this. So that's a part of why we're making the case for the time is now, so that the bank is up and running. And as recovery funds are, the federal monies are gone, and as fossil fuel monies diminish or reduce, because we know that's going to happen. And even LFC says their projections show that they're going to be going down after this year. That's the way we're going to help to stabilize economic development in this state. So if the legislators and the governor would only look beyond this fire hose of funding that they have now, that's really where the sweet spot is for making the case. But
so is it helpful for us to right now, to let the governor know that we really want this on the call, and without having to give a whole ton of reasons?
without giving all of that rationale, yes, I think it would be helpful.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Angela.
Yeah. Oh, and let me just ask, since Ray Ellen posted a comment in the chat. My understanding was that the public bank does get FDIC insurance, doesn't it? Aren't the funds?
We will, we in the bill, we have the bill draft says that we will follow FDIC guidelines and be in compliance with that, even though the actual deposits won't. There will be 60 million there rather, and then coverage is up to 250,000. So it's it's up to the state to back those deposits, but the bank is going to be FDIC compliant, and it'll also meet the regs for accessing the Federal Reserve window and also state charter bank requirements.
Mm-hmm. Somebody's asking if the cannabis industry is supporting the public bank. Do you know if that's?
There is strong interest from cannabis to actually have it as a depository, as well as be able to lend to cannabis growers. The latter is not going to be possible as long as the federal laws are what they are, because
Right.
we wouldn't be able to access the Federal Reserve window. The bank wouldn't be able to if we were lending, if we were providing loans for cannabis growers. To become a depository of cannabis revenue, it would mean establishing a separate unit of the bank. It could be done, but it would be an expensive item, and but it could be, it is possible, but it's not written into the current draft of the bill.
Where can people get more information on the public bank or
Yeah, people are
contact
starting to
you?
ask a couple of questions. So where should they go? To AFLEP website?
Go to the website, and we have a YouTube channel linked there that has a number of very short 2 to 3 minute videos with information, or they can write info@aflep.org, and I'll forward those questions to whomever is most relevant for answering them.
Okay, and maybe you can try and answer some of the questions
In the chat. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'll track those now and
Yeah.
put some answers in.
And Sharon Argenbright asked about how's it germane. There are often a number of bills that aren't necessarily germane. So, these things are sometimes, if there's the will to get it done, they can still wind up on the call during the short session.
But that's the definition of germane, basically. is
Yeah,
it's on the
okay. And so
call.
Angela's going to try to get in chat and answer some of your other questions.
Okay, so let's go back to the page here.
Okay.
And so for all of these where you see a blue bolded thing,
Headline.
it's a link. And if you click, you'll get the
would
one
just show-
pager from the year before.
For example.
Here's
Let's
State
hope it
Public
works.
Bank.
Yeah. So
And-
there's the info. I updated this a little bit the other day. Things haven't changed that much since last year. But that's just an example. And then the next thing,
Is the Health
health
Security Plan and Design.
There'll be some info here. This is basically just a general
Let's see the structure.
why Health Security Act is good for New Mexico, but also with a little bit of added information.
All of the different one pagers, if there is a history, give the history of the bill's progression or success or failure, what happened in the last session and so forth, and then why it's good for New Mexico.
And what's a little bit different this year, because as many of you know, it was funding was passed for the Health Security Act last year, but they need more funding. So that is this will explain it to you right here on the page, what
Yeah.
they're asking for this year. For the plan and design, they need more funding.
So that effort will be a little bit different. We'll be lobbying primarily, I would imagine, with Patty Lundstrom and George Munoz. How fun to be ensured that the funds are in the Superintendent of Insurance's budget.
Oh, and Representative Lujan, thank you for answering the question about germane. It's there in the chat if anybody wants to look at that. Okay, we already talked about small loan rate cap,
Yeah, we did.
and we'll tell you more once we find out more.
Yeah, we have done some research, and we will share that with you, and we'll get together with the coalition to make sure that we're in step with them, because we pretty much follow the cues of the people leading whatever. And now we're on to the next one, which is public power, which I am so excited about, because we wrote about it way back in June, and there's a link to the article there about how public power could be a path to energy democracy. And we're going to write something about that public power on Thursday as well. But the process right now is we've gotten 18 legislators to sign a petition and submit it to the PRC, asking that they launch a study of the viability of public power as a framework for organizing our energy in New Mexico. And Liz Stefanik's is going to introduce a bill, a memorial to fund a study for public power in New Mexico. It's not going to have funding attached to it, but they're going to. It's basically the same way that the Health Security Act got through last session. through a memorial because it got stalled in House appropriations otherwise. So you want to go down to Green Amendment? Green Amendment has done some kicking of butt. They now have somewhere around 20 legislators who have signed on to support the bill from all over the state. There is some glaring omissions though on that list. And if you click on the Green Amendment, we identify the legislators. If you scroll down.
Yeah, we'll scroll
Now this
down.
is all the PDFs are all from last year. They're still got pretty good information, but
Yeah, and these, the first one is ours, the two below that are directly from Green Amendment for
the
the
generations.
generations, yeah. Okay, what are we, we're going down to show people, yeah, a lot of people signing on, a lot of
organizations.
legislators already saying, yes, we support this. Can't fit them all on the screen here, but this will give you a glance. You can go look at this.
We see Tara
yourself.
Lujan on there. Thank you.
Thank you,
Representative
Representative Lujan.
Lujan.
Yeah, so how many people are on here? Like 20 or
I
something?
think 20.
Looks more like a little, maybe even a little more than 20. So
Yeah.
that's a really good sign.
But where we're lacking is in the leadership of the Democratic Party. You don't see Worth, Egolf. You don't see
Mimi
Representative.
Stewart,
You don't see Mimi Stewart. You don't see Representative Martinez, Javier Martinez, who's now on the floor. And you don't see
now on the floor meeting.
Nancy Rodriguez, who's the floor whip for
Okay,
the
yeah,
Democratic
just
Party
wanted you
now.
to clarify that.
And Nancy Rodriguez, who's also, a committee chair. And so we have, and those, a significant number of the people not on this list
There's
are from our
from the Santa Fe
Santa Fe
area.
area. And so it's time to put some pressure on these people to get the information they need. You may remember when we did our Zoom conversation with Worth and Egolf, Speaker Egolf gave some rather misinformed information about how there was already something in the Constitution to protect the environment, which is totally different from what this is about. Basically,
And he passed that civil rights.
yeah, and he
bill
said
last
his
year.
civil rights bill would cover it, which it
But-
didn't.
No, it doesn't.
And so we have some work to do, and the time to do it is now, not after the session gets going. I've reached out to Brian and Peter to try and do a Zoom conversation with them, a legislator constituent Zoom. And Rena Shezapansky is scheduling it for the first week of the session. They can't do it in January, before the session begins. We'll keep
Okay.
you posted on that. And then the bills we oppose. Oh, hydrogen hub.
Two
We
big
have
ones.
done an awful lot of writing about this. And it's really important that our legislators are educated about it. It's entirely appropriate for the governor to be trying to line up support behind this bill and anything else on her agenda. I mean, that's what you do. And it's difficult for members of the party to come out in opposition to a leader's position on something. Look at in the US Senate with Senator Manchin and Biden, and the whole Democratic Party looks at Manchin as being a traitor. And well, maybe not the whole party, but a bunch of them. So it takes a little bit of courage. And so what we want to try and do is get information out. And all of these pieces have been written in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I
And-
encourage you to go read those pieces because it really does explain why hydrogen is a bad idea and it's not green and it still releases greenhouse gases, and it basically is there to support the oil and gas industry so that they can still make money and still stay in business.
Yeah. And so, and all of these are not just opinion pieces from me. It's all based on research by credible scientists or environmentalists. And for example, in the second one, it focuses on the only peer review of hydrogen, study of hydrogen as an energy source. And it also includes an excellent video. If you haven't seen it, he's done it quite a number of times. Tom Solomon from 350NM.
And these are very pretty current studies and reports, right?
Yes,
Just
yes,
in the
yes.
in the last months,
Yeah.
I think.
So interestingly, one of the things that is pointed out in the second article is that the research that is often cited that says this is a viable option is cited by the Hydrogen Institute, which was formed by the gas and oil industry. And
What do you
so you might as well have had New Mexico Oil and Gas Association do the study.
And Representative Lujan just said that legislators need more education, and they do. And I think, isn't one of the legislators going to call for a study
Yes,
first?
yes, that's Liz Stefanix is going to introduce a study. And, you know, while that might be a good way to get, and Tara is part of that study memorial. Thank you for that. We'll want to be really careful about who winds up on that panel making decisions, because you know, the devil is in the details of something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm comfortable with Tara and Liz. You know, people can be assigned the structure of the committee or whatever it is, task force that studies it. If it's all comprised of industry type folks or people picked by the governor, it's going to be very hard to have it come to the right conclusions.
I just want to say to everyone, if you're not following the chat, you know, please do click on chat, because there's a lot of good information and comments in that strand on the chat. And we don't have time to point them out or read them or comment on all of them.
So the work we did on the hydrogen hub is pretty well informed by, especially the third one in that in the series, is because we have the governor's 27-page bill summary. So we actually know what she's going to propose. And so the third piece there cites excerpts that make it very clear that she's not, her definition of clean energy is not a definition of clean energy embraced by anyone other than the fossil fuel industry and the governor. So
unfortunately,
I'm mystified as to why a governor who is headed for a re-election campaign that could be a tough one would be advocating for something that is going to offend so many environmental groups that are so important to her.
well, that gas
campaign.
and oil industry is very powerful in this state. So that's a partial answer. Okay, should we move on to
net zero?
So there's just two bills at this point that we know we're going to oppose. Hydrogen hub was one, net zero is the second.
And there we don't know very much about what is going to be in that bill, just the concept. And that's what we kind of examined in Solnit Dares to Hope, while the New Mexico governor offers a dangerous fantasy. And the net zero is basically an accounting calculation where, you know, you say, all right, we're burning fossil fuel over here, but in 20 years, we're going to do this over here that's going to work to reduce the amount of carbon and methane in the atmosphere, or we're going to capture all this methane and store it, and that's going to make up for this. And most of the net zero efforts are based on technology that has not been demonstrated that it works. In fact, there's been billions invested in carbon capture, and nowhere has it ever worked or been able to be brought to scale. And so it's just a dangerous tool that in most instances, what critics would say is it's just an excuse, a way to give the gas and oil industry a pass for now, and environment and politicians the ability to say, well, we're making
We're-
progress.
Right.
We're making progress when no progress is being made.
When what we really need to do is invest everything we can in renewables.
So what we'll hope you guys will do is
Should I
to,
stop sharing the screen?
yeah, you can stop sharing the screen. What we hope all of you will do is take a look at that information, pull pieces from it, and use it to educate your legislators and send them a link to one or two of those things. Many of the legislators subscribe to our blog, but many don't. And so it would be a good idea to share this information with them before they're buried in bills in the middle of January.
Yeah.
So,
Anybody have any questions?
any questions?
If you do, please use the raise hand
Otherwise,
function
we're going to give
under-
it to Ralph
under reactions.
for a minute. Ralph, are you still there? Oh, there you are. Are you ready? You have to unmute.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you,
Tell
Paul.
everybody who you are first, please.
I actually wrote this stuff down so that I could try to stay within 3 to 4 minutes. Yeah, my name is Ralph Rons, and I wear many hats, but tonight I'm representing the Middle Rio Grande Water Advocates. I want to make this quick because I know that there have been lots of subjects on tonight's agenda. I want to brief you and the participants on the lobbying that the Middle Rio Grande Water Advocates, that's Norm Gom, me, many others, plan to do for greatly expanded funding for water planning / management agencies on this 2022 money session, and the importance of gaining allies in this effort. I won't be surprising most of you on this huddle to say we are facing a looming water scarcity crisis in the state, and regrettably, for years upon years, the state government has been in denial on this. We have an upcoming virtual conference that is intended to cover this topic, engage and arm our participants to this end. I'm going to drop the link for that conference, which actually starts January 8th. Keynote speaker is former state rep Melanie Stansberry, now our CD1 rep. She's going to be speaking on the importance of water governance reform. So if you want to check out the agenda and register to get informed and engaged, that would be awesome. So HB2 is the bill. And I think most of you probably know that that's the General Appropriations Act of every legislative session. And while we have identified legislature allies to hopefully be champions, admittedly, we have not pinned any of them down yet. We know we need a ton of citizens allies, and that's why I wanted to talk to you guys tonight, to lobby the chairs, vice chairs, and key members, both Democrat and Republican, of the HAFC and the SFC, that's House Appropriations and Finance Committee and Senate's Finance Committee, on our big ask. And we're not alone in this big ask, but we still want to, we want to really lead this effort. So Norm Gom, and some of you know him from other talks and as an expert witness on other bills before the state legislature. He's working right now on a one-page letter that's going to be sent to these key members of the committees, and he's also annotating a spreadsheet that I got to say he has assembled, by himself. But he started off with the big ask that the outgoing state engineer, John D'Antonio, asked his governor to be supportive of, and she rejected it. So that was problematic. He has since, he's resigned and has like 1 or 2 more days to go. And that's the starting point of this big ask. Well, we're working on the talking points, and that can be provided for the Retake Our Democracies page on the bills that are going to be supported by Retake Our Democracy. So we want to be right in line with that effort. I just want to quickly say at this point that we believe by prior conversation and engagement that Senators Worth and Stefanik are in our camp on this ask. And that Mike Hammond will also be supportive in his new role as the governor's water advisor. If some of you heard that he was appointed about a month ago to be the governor's water advisor beginning January 1. We think our likely legislator allies would be including, in the House side would be Representative Tara Lujan, Representative Andrea Romero, Matthew McQueen, Christina Ortez, Angelica Rubio, Christine Chandler. We think on the Senate side would be, Liz Stefanix, Peter Worth, Antoinette Cedillo Lopez. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting her first name, McKenna.
Brenda.
And also Senator Hamlin. And then we're also aiming to line up some allies on the House Appropriations Finance Committee. I didn't know this, but Phelps Anderson, who changed his registration to independent, used to be the chair of the Interstate Stream Commission. So we're going to aim for him. But we have a lot of people that we want to reach out to on the House Appropriations and Finance Committee for this. And, continuing, just, we would really like to have the support of many in this huddle. Thank you very much.
Okay, so you'll get that info to us and we'll get it out to everybody.
Yes, I will.
I'm going to give it over to Tara Lujan, who
Tara's
has her
got her
hand
hand up.
up. But first, I wanted to respond to something that Michael Smith was commenting on, saying that Marielle Nanasi had sent him a link to a Rethink X, which is a website that does progressive research on energy, which states renewable solar and wind production will generate more power than we can use. And so that's precisely the point of public power. If we organize, and that's the reason Avangrid and Iberdrola wanted to come here. They wanted to cherry pick our energy and export it. But with public power, we would be able to do that. And that would be a new revenue source for the state.
Yeah.
So it would clearly address our own energy.
Thing.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're gonna,
somebody needs to mute.
Oh.
I can hear you talking. Yeah, sorry for bouncing around here, but we're trying to cover a lot of ground tonight. So go ahead, Tara.
Thank you.
Lujan.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate being here and listening to everything that's being discussed. These are really incredible issues that I fully support. And I just wanted to get back to Ralph, to respond to Ralph and the water bill that he's working on. I actually am putting forward an appropriation for a $12 million appropriation for the state engineer's office, because that is the response, and that was the discussion I had with the outgoing state engineer, D'Antonio. And it's something that I got endorsed through a working committee for Water and Natural Resources Committee, the interim committee, and I'm a member of, and had the full support of Senator Liz Stefanix. So she and many of the other members of the committee are supporting this as well. I'd like to talk to you more about that, Ralph, if we can get offline and to see exactly what you are working on, and make it make it more encompassing if we need to work on the draft that I have in place now. It's a simple appropriation, to be honest with you, but if there are other substantial points to be made or to be added, I'd like to look for that input as well. So thank you for your work.
okay. So do we
Thank
want to
you.
hear from Kathleen? Kathleen, can you give us a kind of a brief report on what happened with redistricting and what's next?
Yeah, and tell them who you are.
I can. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Roxanne. I'm Kathleen Burke. I'm the project coordinator at Fair Districts for New Mexico. And my colleague, Dick Mason, is also here tonight. So I wanted to invite Dick to unmute and come on with me if you'd like. So as many of you know, redistricting wrapped up the special session in December. And we are waiting for the governor to sign some of that legislation, which is, she has signed the map for Congress. So that's done. There was an interesting article in the Albuquerque Journal yesterday about that. We at Fair Districts are not taking stands on one map over the other. We have been more involved with the process and making sure that it's fair and transparent. So where we are now, as I said, the congressional map has been signed by the governor. That's done. She has not yet signed the House map nor the New Mexico Senate map. That's New Mexico House and New Mexico Senate. The PEC map, the Public Education Commission, was signed. So so we wait and see. We also are in the process of the beginnings of analysis of the redistricting process. So experts from UNM and elsewhere will be giving us feedback on how they think the redistricting process went. Was it fair? Was it unfair? So I'll have more to share with you as time goes on. Looking ahead, we are meeting, that Fair Districts is meeting on Monday to discuss the constitutional amendment, which we will either be promoting and putting forth in this legislative session or 2023. So that's up in the air. We've got core people meeting on Monday to make those decisions. And again, I'll stay in touch with Retake about that. So yeah, it was an arduous month, and redistricting is done. Pending the governor's signature for another 10 years. We'll see what happens. There might be lawsuits, there might not. But that's about all I have for you at the moment. I'm happy to take any questions if you guys want to go down that road.
Okay, and
Or maybe Dick Mason wants to chime in and say a few
thank
things.
you.
He's here.
Yeah, you know, Paul, I sent you a brief summary just recently that we've done. Generally, we are pleased with the way that the House of Representatives handled redistricting. They filed all the maps. They basically used one of the maps from the CRs, from the Citizens Redistricting Committee, but included the Native American consensus that hadn't been reached before the CRC adjourned. So, and the process was transparent. We can't say that for the Senate. We are very disappointed in the process in the Senate, and we'll be summarizing that and sending out a report soon. It is interesting the governor hasn't signed either of those maps, but I'm not going to read into that.
Okay.
But as usual, Kathleen gave a very good summary. So
Okay, great. And thank you both for the enormous amount of work that you put into that. Very much appreciated. We've got
Thanks for Retake support.
Okay.
You guys were a big
You're welcome.
support.
You're welcome. Karen's got her hand up. Karen Myers, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to suggest another bill to put on your radar to support.
Okay.
I think we anticipate the housing bill, which was House Bill 111 last year, which was, the sponsors were Andrea Romero and Angelica Rubio. It died in the Senate Judiciary Committee after going through 3 committees and passing the House and passing the first committee in the Senate. I believe it's going to be on the call, and there is broad support for it. So it would be a really important response to some of the eviction issues and housing issues that are going on in New Mexico.
Do you know if it's going to be the same bill as before, or is there adjustments based on, input?
There were a lot of amendments that took place over the course of the session. And my understanding is that the bill that will start or be proposed, and this may be totally wrong, but I think it's right, will be the bill that went to Senate Judiciary, which would be the bill as amended after there was a negotiations with the Apartment Owners Association, and they joined in supporting it. So we reached a very solid place last
Would you be
year.
a good person to get continuing information on that, or is there someone you can refer us to?
I'll find out who to talk to, Paul.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
Thank
That
you.
sounds like a promising bill as well.
Yeah. So we have about 8 minutes left. There's a couple other things we want to talk about. Did you want to talk about constituent legislator
Yeah,
Zoom meetings?
I know that one of you, Meg Meltz, tried to reach out and get a Zoom with Liz Stefanix. And as luck would have it, I talked to her like a day or so after you, Meg, had written to Liz, and she said she would get back to her, but she didn't, as Meg told me this afternoon. So I think this is why we can't do it, because multiply it times 90 or 100 or however many, we're not going to be
Possible
doing it with
meetings,
lots of
yeah.
Republicans. It has to be someone out there that says, I know that legislator, or they're my legislator, I'll try and get this thing scheduled. And then once you've got it scheduled, you let us know, and we'll let other people know, and we'll send out emails to people who are in that district that we know.
Yeah,
And-
someone put a note in earlier. I'm sorry, I don't remember that. They've got a meeting, I think a meeting scheduled with Mimi Stewart. If you want to put that note in, was that you, Sandy? Yeah, okay. Do you, wait, okay, yeah, go ahead, and do you want to
Yeah, go
tell
ahead and
people
tell
when
people.
that is? You got to unmute first.
Yeah. So this is actually our second meeting with Mimi. We did one earlier, and I think one of the reasons she's willing to come a second time is that we are, for her, a woman's only group. And at the time that we met with her initially, she was really dealing with the ethics issues and the gender inequality issues and all those issues that had come up. So she has agreed to meet with us on Monday morning, January 10th from 9:30 to 11. There will be we'll use a hybrid model. We will have, some of us will meet with her in person. We're hoping to keep that number small because of all the viruses, but we will also have a hybrid, a Zoom link as well. So I will put our website in the chat. If you're interested, please go to the website. We will not be posting any information on this until January 2nd. So please look on the 2nd, for that link. What we're hoping to do is to be able to keep it relatively small so she's comfortable talking openly as she did in our last get together. I think once there's too many people on Zoom, she's going to become very guarded and it will be difficult. One of the things Paul and Roxanne I'd like to do is chat with both of you, and let's say we can bring up 3 major issues that we want to hear where she is, what her position is. I'd like to have you help us select those 3 issues.
Okay.
So I will schedule a call with you.
And it sounds to me that it wouldn't be a good idea to publicize this broadly, that you
No.
want to keep it to your members. And
Yes.
if we can
And
identify,
a few other people, yeah.
and if we can identify a couple of other women from this group, would that be okay?
That would be fabulous.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
And I just want to point out that Katie Brule put in the chat that the, what was it, League of Women Voters in Los Alamos is, sorry, it disappeared. Oh, yes, Los Alamos League of Women Voters on Thursday, January 6th is meeting with their state legislators. I don't know if she means House and Senate.
That was supposed to be it's going to be House and Senate.
Okay, great. So for any of you who are out that way, she's got a link in there to register to participate in that.
And we also have a meeting, if I could just say, with Liz Stefanix, because she represents many of the women in our group. And but I can't remember the date of that one offhand, but it's in January.
If you could send that to us, and then I'll talk to Liz and make sure it's okay, and then we'll get some other people from retail.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank
and
you,
we got Jeff Selesky has his hand up. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I had reached out a couple of times to Brenda McKenna. I'm in District 9. She's our senator. And I asked her if she would have some time. And like we did last year, we wanted to hear what her priorities are and express what ours are for the coming session. And her comment was, of course, she's struggling for indicating she's, pretty overwhelmed and this and that. But one of the comments she made is that everything that we want to talk about in terms of any bills must first go through the governor's office. And I don't know if that's been a kind of a general concern or a pushback among other legislators that other folks have tried to contact. But what I was going to suggest to her is that we can reframe that just as priorities that we're thinking about, and we want to hear her priorities. But anyway, for some reason, she felt that that was a concern for her in terms of discussing specific legislation that either she would be interested in promoting or that we're interested in promoting.
Yeah, just to respond to that a little bit, we ran into that in a couple of our Zooms with eGolf and Worth. The one before the session began, there was a lot of, I really need to see the bill before I can comment about whether I'm supportive. And so that's reasonable, but you can still educate on the issues and raise concerns about, whether it's the small loan rate cap or public banking in concept. And Tara's got her hand up again. Representative Lujan?
Yes, and I think you're going in the right direction there with that response. Paul, I think there is a question in the chat asking, what makes a bill germane? And through the 30-day session, what makes a bill germane is that it has an appropriation and that it's relevant to the House Bill 2, which is our state budget. So if it's relevant to that, then it is germane, and it can be introduced regardless of getting an approval or message from the governor. What the messaging process is that we ask the governor to consider adding legislation to the call is if it doesn't have an appropriation and it needs to be addressed, like we're talking about the 36% bill. I think that those are some misconceptions, and maybe an easy way for us to rely on what the weight of the governor, which it is in fact a true weight. But we are still, as legislators and separate powers, able to introduce legislation as long as it's relevant in that way, making it germane. I just wanted to add that.
Okay.
Great.
So from what I'm hearing from you, Representative Lujan, since the public bank is asking for, I believe, $50 million allocation, by virtue of that, it can be introduced and considered regardless of whether the governor puts it on the call. Is that correct then?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay.
As long as it hasn't, because that would be from the general fund that the appropriation would be made from. So that would make it germane.
Okay.
Now, whether it gets a hearing, whether it gets the nod from the governor is another thing. It's good to work through the governor's office at this time. I would always recommend that, but that is true.
Okay, well, we're at 7 o'clock, so we're going to have to wrap it up. And if anybody has questions or other things you want to mention to us, please email us. It's retakeresponse@gmail.com. We try to stay on top of that email just about every day. And
with varied success.
yeah, except we didn't over the holidays so much. But thank you all for being here tonight. Remember, as Paul mentioned at the beginning, our next huddle is scheduled 2 weeks from tonight. So that's January 12th
from
at
6 to
p.m.
7.
We will be following up with all of you to remind you about that and to send you a link to register.
And we took some time off for the holidays, and we had our daughter here from med school, and that consumed a whole lot of time. And then we flew her out of here yesterday, the day before yesterday. No, was that yesterday?
It was
No,
Monday.
the day before, Monday. And in one day, it was amazing how much work we got done on retake, now that we were back.
After she left, yeah.
And so we're back in the saddle, and we'll try and get as much done as we can in the next 2 weeks to get ready for the session. But it's feeling pretty good. If anybody's interested in being an observer or doing any other kind of role to support us, just go to the page
Go to
with
NM legislation.
NM legislation
On
in
our
the menu
website.
bar. It's in the menu bar on our homepage. And there's a link where you can go to sign up. And one of the things we really need is somebody to revise the committee lists once the new representatives are installed and given offices and phone numbers and email addresses.
It's
and
usually
stuff.
the end of the first week of the legislative session. We've got all the lists from last year that we can give you. They're in Word, and we would just, and a lot of that will be the same, but we need somebody to work on updating those. Let us know if you're interested in doing that. And we'll put the link up to the sign up for the hearing hearing observations by Monday. I
Yeah,
think we'll
yeah,
have it ready to go,
yeah.
and we'll send you a note about that.
All right, it's good to see everybody.
Thanks,
again.
everybody. Happy
Thank
New
you.
Year. See you
Happy
in
New Year.
2022.
Stay safe, healthy, and active. It's the only way we fix this mess. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Stop recording.
Yeah, stop the recording.